Common Sense Army, it is Thursday, and on today's episode of the Why I'm Right podcast, we're talking about the upcoming debates. I know the breaking news yesterday was all about how Joe Biden and Donald Trump, within minutes, accepted terms on a debate. Two debates coming up this year. We're talking about that and much more. You don't want to miss this episode. This is the Why I'm Right podcast.
We live in a world filled with noise and confusion, clickbait, and outright lies in the media. But here, we cut through the clutter to find the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. This is Why I'm Right, the podcast where we dig deeper, ask the tough questions, and unravel the tangled webs of political and current events. Join us as we dissect the latest news, analyze political rhetoric, and challenge the narratives that dominate the mainstream discourse. We're not shy. From dissecting the motives behind policy decisions to uncovering the hidden agendas of public figures, it's what we do. It's time to think for ourselves. This is Why I'm Right. And now your unafraid and unapologetic host, Matt Taylor.
He is right. This is the Why I'm Right podcast. If this is your first episode here, welcome. And if you're already a member of the Common Sense Army, welcome back. I'm happy to have you. As I say on every episode, before we dive into the episode, we're trying to grow the Common Sense Army one day at a time, one podcast at a time. The one way you can help in our mission is by clicking subscribe, sharing these videos, sharing this podcast with your friends, with your family, with people who agree and people who disagree, because the most important thing in our nation right now is the ability to have civil discourse, especially when talking about politics, because right now there's an illusion of division, and I believe there's more people that have common sense in this country than many in the mainstream media want you to believe. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. And today's episode is super important. I know the breaking news yesterday was obviously Joe Biden and Donald Trump agreed to terms on two separate debates, one in June and one in September. What's noteworthy and what a lot of people in the left-wing media aren't talking about is Joe Biden. Yes, he did put out a 13-second video that was edited 5 separate times, challenging Trump to accept his debate offers. But what the mainstream media isn't talking about is Joe Biden is declining the Commission on Debates, normal debates. For 30 years, the Commission of Presidential Debates has hosted 3 debates during an election, a general election cycle, and it's normally, somewhat impartial. They're supposed to be impartial, and they come up with the terms for the debate. Well, it's noteworthy to say that Joe Biden declined those debates and instead gave his alternatives, and he did put a lot of stipulations into those terms. Obviously, one of them being no crowds are allowed to be there. One of them being it has to be on a Biden-friendly channel, Biden-friendly outlet, media outlet, hosted by Biden-friendly moderators. And the biggest thing that I noted yesterday is that he said in his demands for these debates that RFK Jr. isn't allowed to be on the stage. Again, it's noteworthy because we all know that RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is everything the Democrat Party has been for a long period of time. He just might not be as crazy as Joe Biden and as far left as Joe Biden, but he's a Democrat at heart. And the name Kennedy, no matter what the media is trying to tell you, the name Kennedy, there aren't going to be Republicans lining up to vote for a guy named Kennedy. Just not going to happen right now in this country. And we're starting to see slowly drips and drabs come out in the media. We're starting to see slowly the positions of RFK, how radically left they actually are. He's super left on abortion, super left on many issues that are critically important to this election cycle. So I want to start the episode before we talk about the debates. I know that's a big subject right now flying around the internet. Everyone's talking about it, and we'll dive into that at the end of this episode. But I want to start this episode where, the Super Bowl's going on right now. At least that's what the media wants you to believe. The Super Bowl is going on in New York City right now, meaning this Trump trial in New York City, this sham trial in New York City, which is a, Business Records Act, a business records trial, a business records case in New York City that everyone in the mainstream media wants to call a hush money scandal, hush money trial in New York City. It's not a hush money trial. I've said it many times before. I'll say it many times again. This is a business records act. And we saw the prosecution, and they put their final witness on the stand, Michael Cohen, and it went just as about the way you would expect it to go when you put Michael Cohen on the stand. We've seen over the past week, Republicans are flocking in, big name Republicans. I talked about it yesterday, Vivek Ramaswamy. Today, there are more Republicans. Matt Gaetz is there today. A number of other big name Republicans there today supporting Donald Trump and doing what I believe is genius, which is Donald Trump can't talk. He has this gag order on him. Donald Trump can't speak about the trial, speak about the judge, speak about the impartial jury in Manhattan, where 95% of the vote historically has gone Democrat. We're talking about Donald Trump can't say any of that right now. So what Donald Trump, his team, and the Republican Party has done is send in proxies, send in big-name Republicans to do the dirty work for Donald Trump. The media hates it. The media is trying to make fun of it, but it is very effective when you put these big-name Republicans on blast, meaning you're putting them on every mainstream news outlet right now, giving them the opportunity to say how, crazy this trial is in New York City, how crazy this judge is in New York City, and how poor of a witness Michael Cohen is for this trial. And pretty much it's been talked about all over the place. No one has been able to effectively, whether it's the prosecution, whether it's the media, whether it's anybody on the left, no one can effectively say what the crime is, the underlying crime that makes what Donald Trump did a felony. No one can say what the underlying crime is right now. And so we see right now what's going on in New York City. And what's super important to talk about is right now at the Supreme Court level, we know the presidential immunity case, which was brought to the Supreme Court due to the Jack Smith case, with January 6th, talking about the insurrection. Trump is saying I have presidential immunity because everything I did on that day, on January 6th, I was the president. I was acting in my presidential position, and I have presidential immunity. Again, all of these cases are shams right now, and when you really look at the presidential immunity case, which the Supreme Court is going to rule on in the next week or two, what is the extent of Donald Trump, or what is the extent of a president's immunity in any case around the world right now. But the reason there is presidential immunity is for the exact reasons we're seeing in New York City. The founding fathers put into the Constitution and built into our founding documents and our structure in this country, they built in presidential immunity for the president of the United States for the main reason they didn't want presidents being drugged through the mud, ex-presidents being drugged through the mud, former presidents being drugged through the mud, and dealing with civil and federal cases that had no real substance behind them. And we're seeing what happens in New York City when cases start to fall apart, like the case right now with Judge Merchan in Manhattan. And so, again, it's going to be very interesting what the Supreme Court rules in that case. But right now, when you look at New York City and you look at Michael Cohen and you hear or you see or you read the testimony, on mainstream media, it's funny right now. You look at it, you see all these lawyers, high-end, big-name lawyers who are on every panel. Like I said, it's the Super Bowl coverage right now that we're getting on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all over the place. And on places like CNN and MSNBC, we're seeing big-name, lawyers doing reenactments and skits from this trial because the judge wouldn't allow cameras in the courtroom, wouldn't allow audio devices to be recording in the courtroom to, again, shield you and I and the public, the general public, the voting populace in this nation from seeing what's exactly going on in these courtrooms, in this courtroom right now in New York City. But when the star witness in this case is a serial perjurer The first star witness that the media wanted to believe was Mother Teresa was a porn star, and her name was Stormy Daniels, and she talked about sex acts on the stand. And now you bring in your big weapon, your secret weapon, the one part of your case that you need to be incredibly strong, and you bring in someone like Michael Cohen, who's a serial perjurer, lied under oath, served time in jail for lying under oath, documented liar, admitted to lying under oath on the stand again yesterday. And what's crazy, and we're going to see it, I'm telling you, we're going to see it unfold in the courtroom this upcoming week. And I believe it's going to be, the defense in this case, Trump's defense team, has said we're going to call one witness. And some people are speculating it's going to be Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not taking the stand. Again, he's not going to do it. As much as I believe Donald Trump would love to take the stand, I don't believe his attorneys, his counsel are going to let him take the stand or talk him out of taking the stand because, again, it would backfire, I believe. But what I can say is Michael Cohen's legal advisor was under oath yesterday on Capitol Hill, and you have to, it's critically important that you listen to his testimony under oath yesterday on Capitol Hill at the same time that Michael Cohen is sitting in the courtroom spewing lies to the jury. His legal advisor, somebody who was a lawyer for Michael Cohen, was under oath yesterday on Capitol Hill, and you have to hear what he had to say. I believe this is going to be Donald Trump's witness. I believe the defense is going to call Robert Costello. This is, like I said, Michael Cohen's attorney, his legal advisor, and he took the stand yesterday under oath on Capitol Hill, and here's what he had to say. Listen up, it's about 2 minutes long. You have to hear all of this because you're going to hear it again. I'm telling you right now, this will be the defense's witness. During this Trump trial, they're going to call one witness, and it's going to be Michael Costello. I can almost guarantee you that. Many people in the media aren't talking about this, but we're talking about it here. Here's Costello under oath on Capitol Hill yesterday.
Didn't believe the allegation of the Stormy Daniels story, that he thought the story would be embarrassing for Trump and especially for Melania, so he decided he would take care of it himself.
Absolutely, and that is contrary to what this guy testified to in court in New York yesterday.
Well, and what's not being talked about is your next paragraph, like the reason and his motivation for that. So if you could just kind of walk through that for the committee.
Yeah, obviously, when we started to talk about the NDAs, and this is the very first meeting at the Regency Hotel, when, by the way, Rudy Giuliani was not involved in representing Donald Trump at that time. Cohen testified that it was a conspiracy between Giuliani and Costello as of this date. Totally false. In any event, he also said that he didn't discuss the Stormy Daniels matter with us, and he certainly did. I specifically asked him because he kept on going back saying, I can't believe they're trying to put me in jail for these NDAs. So I said, Michael, tell me about the NDA. Tell me about Stormy Daniels. What did you do? He said, I got a call from a lawyer representing Stormy Daniels who represented that she was going to testify that Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels. Michael Cohen said, I didn't believe the allegation, but I knew that such an allegation would be terribly embarrassing. He said it would be embarrassing. He focused on Melania Trump. He said, I didn't want to embarrass Melania Trump. He said, that's why I decided to take care of this on my own. Right. I went back to that several times. You did this on your own? On my own. Did Donald Trump have anything to do with it? No. Did you get the money from Donald Trump? No. From any of his organizations? No. From anybody connected to Donald Trump? No. Where did you get the money? I took out a HELOC loan against my property. I said, why would you do that? He said, I didn't want anybody to know where I got this money. I didn't want Melania to know. I didn't want my own wife to know because she's in charge, he said, of the Cohen family finances. He said, if she saw money coming out of my account, she'd ask me 100 questions and I didn't want to answer any of them. It was clear after talking to him for several days after that, whenever we talked on the phone or in my office, that he kept on bringing up the subject that he felt he was betrayed by.
Again, this is who the defense should call to the stand as their witness. I'm telling you right now, because the jury in the case in New York City had to sit there and listen to Michael Cohen, who, again, under oath, has lied in the past, has gone to jail for lying under oath. And you would have to put, again, you bring up Costello on the stand, and he's your witness. He's the defense's witness. And you have him tell the story he just told you. It's going to be, who do you trust more? Who's a more credible witness right now? Is it the guy that lied multiple times under oath, the guy that is a documented liar who has perjured himself previously, has explicitly talked about, it came out so much yesterday, it came out even more today, his disdain, his hatred, his bitterness towards Donald Trump? He has one mission. He's made it very clear even on the stand during this trial. His one sole mission is to get Donald Trump to be behind bars. He sells merchandise for his podcast that has Donald Trump in the orange jumpsuit, saying, put him in the big house, not the White House. This guy has a sole mission, a hatred for Donald Trump, and obviously it got brought up again today in the courtroom, that he was upset that Donald Trump brought everyone around him in the business world, everyone that was a part of the Trump empire, got some sort of position. Many people got some sort of position in Donald Trump's White House, and one person didn't. And it was Michael Cohen, and he said he wanted to be at least considered, have his name being thrown out for consideration to be chief of staff or attorney general. He wanted that publicity. Again, it's an ego thing for Michael Cohen. He even said it's an ego thing. So all of a sudden, when you put up Michael Cohen's attorney on the stand, Michael Cohen's legal advisor on the stand, and he flat out says, nope, that's not true. Michael Cohen lied to the jury. That he lied to you guys. Because he's going to be speaking to the jury. He lied in this case. He actually told me X, Y, and Z. He told me he's the one that, without Donald Trump's knowledge, took out the money, paid based on a HELOC that he took out on his home because he didn't want Donald Trump to be embarrassed by the Stormy Daniels. And actually, Costello said clearly Trump had no idea of these payments. Trump had nothing to do with these payments. Trump didn't pay anything. This came from me. I wanted to do it myself. I actually didn't even want Melania to know. I didn't want my wife to know. I didn't want anyone to know where I got this money. And I'm telling you right now, if the defense calls Robert Costello, Michael Cohen's attorney, his legal advisor, who had these conversations again, and Costello goes on under oath yesterday on Capitol Hill to say everything you just listened to and more. He flat out says, yes, Michael Cohen lied on the stand during this trial in New York City. Explicitly, he says that. He goes as far as to say that Michael Cohen is a liar, a perjurer, and that Donald Trump explicitly had no knowledge of this payment, and that Donald Trump did not have anything to do with this payment. That is the whole basis of their trial. And all I'm going to say is, you put that side by side with Michael Cohen's testimony, and I'm telling you, even in a Democrat district with 95% Democrat support, when you have a judge on the stand who's making millions of dollars from the Democrat Party today through his daughter, you see the disdain for Donald Trump from the witnesses in this case. Stormy Daniels has disdain for Donald Trump, talks about how much she hates Donald Trump. Michael Cohen comes on the stand, talks about how much he hates and has disdain for Donald Trump. And I'm telling you right now, even in the circumstances that we're seeing in New York City, in a corrupt system, in a corrupt courtroom, under a corrupt judge, I'm telling you, if you bring Costello on the stand as your witness, you will see at least one juror will make this a hung jury. I'm telling you, because at least one juror, I don't care how Democrat they are, at least one juror will have common sense and say, well, hold on a second. Why would this guy lie under oath? Whose word should I take? The guy that's already lied under oath multiple times, lied in the media multiple times, lied over and over multiple times, who has a mission of putting Donald Trump in prison. Or should I take somebody else who is a legal expert, a legal analyst, and someone who's been in law for 50 years, who has never perjured himself, who has an incredible resume, an incredible history, a reputation? You tell me there's not one juror that this wouldn't at least put in a little bit of reasonable doubt. Let's see what happens, but I'm telling you tomorrow, I believe the defense is going to call Robert Costello. You heard it here first. The case is falling apart. I just highlighted many of the things. As I said at the start of this episode, there isn't anyone in the Democrat Party, anyone in the courtroom, anyone on media who has explicitly, intelligently, and very clearly said, what is the underlying crime that makes what has gone on in New York City a felony? No one's done it. It wasn't in the opening statements in this trial. It wasn't in the witness testimony in this trial. It hasn't come out yet. No one's able to pinpoint what the underlying crime is that makes what Donald Trump did a hush money payment, which is 100% legal. No one's talking about what makes this a crime. What is the underlying crime? No one's explicitly said what it is. And we're now having the prosecution rest their case. And I'm telling you right now, you bring Robert Costello, it is over. It is over. And if Trump gets acquitted, or if Trump gets a hung jury, which I believe is more likely than not, if they bring Costello, there will be a hung jury. You saw what happened in the past 2 weeks. You saw what happened in the Jack Smith case. Obviously, like we said, the immunity discussion is going on in the Supreme Court today. You saw what happened in Georgia with the Fani Willis case. They now are looking at it in the appeals court in Georgia to see if that case is going to move forward with Fani Willis as the prosecutor. That one is postponed. The documents case is postponed. We're seeing it all over the place. Everything is falling into place. And if Donald Trump gets a hung jury or an acquittal in New York City, this backfired on the Democrats. It already has backfired a tremendous amount. But if Trump gets acquitted, oh my gosh, it will be insanity. It will be insanity. Because the people would have spoken, and I already said it yesterday. It's not about the jurors in the jury box. It is about the voters who will decide if Donald Trump is guilty or if Donald Trump is more guilty than Joe Biden, and what Joe Biden has done with the weaponization of the Department of Justice and a complete mockery of our judicial system in this country. People see this for what it is. With the judge on this case, in this district on this case, with the jurors on this case, and now the people, the defense, the prosecution is called as witnesses. And no one's been able to even say what the crime is. This is craziness right now, and this case is falling apart. I'm going to play you a clip. This is on MSNBC, more likely known as, or commonly known as, MSDNC, because they do the work of the Democrat Party. But listen to this on MSNBC yesterday, talking about this trial and how it has backfired epically. Here's cut 2.
Are they being impacted by this trial? Are they paying close attention? And what impact might a guilty verdict have on their decision to support the former president? Here's what they told me. Take a look.
Do each of you support Donald Trump?
I do.
Yes. Yes for all three of you?
Yes.
Has this trial changed your opinion, even caused you to waver or question that at all?
No, it's actually caused me to support him more. I just don't believe there's a coincidence that we have a trial happening in Atlanta. We have one happening in New York. So the question people are beginning to ask themselves, like I did, is like, why now?
Why now? Because it's an election year. Again, these cases could have been brought years ago. This case in New York City could have been brought 7 years ago. But take it a step further. I've already said this numerous times on this podcast specifically. If you think about it, the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, has said this is not a crime. The federal government has said this is not a crime. What's going on in New York City? Actually, Alvin Bragg, when he came in, he said, I'm not charging Trump on this. This is not a crime. The previous AG in New York City before Alvin Bragg, when he saw this case, he said, this is not a crime. Well, hold on. Once Donald Trump ran for president, all of a sudden, we got an underlying crime. We got a case here. We're going to listen to Michael Cohen. Let's bring Michael Cohen to the stand, and let's make sure that doesn't backfire. You're seeing it. People like that clip right there. There are people in this country who either supported Donald Trump in the past, see what's going on, and now they support Donald Trump more. And even more likely, there are people who didn't support Donald Trump, hate the direction of this country, and are now seeing what's going on in New York City and saying this is weaponization of our Department of Justice, and this is a mockery of our legal system in this country. I'm going to support Donald Trump. I'm going to support against the Joe Biden movement. I'm going to support the guy that's not out there weaponizing the Department of Justice. And they're making Donald Trump into a martyr. And I'm telling you, if they do anything, if they convict Trump, if they put him in jail, if anything goes on further than what we've seen, more weaponization than what we've already seen, more egregiousness than we've already seen, what's going to happen is they're going to alienate themselves, alienate the party. And what no one is talking about is historically in this country and historically since 2015, 2016, when Donald Trump came down the escalators, polls have always underestimated the public support for Donald Trump. Not overestimated. So when we're seeing what we're seeing right now, where Trump is leading in the polls, leading in national polls, leading in 5 of the 6 swing states and the 6th in Wisconsin, is within the margin of error. There's a potential right now that Donald Trump's leading in all 6 swing states. But I'm telling you, historically, if you look at what Donald Trump and his poll numbers and what he actually does on election night, they're underestimating it still. And the margins are probably much, much greater. It's probably worse than what we're seeing in the polls today. It's definitely not better for Joe Biden, I can promise you that. Polls underestimate the support for Donald Trump, not overestimate it. And the left wing in this country, the mainstream media, we have to change the subject here. Because I can get red in the face and talk about this trial in New York City more and more every minute of the day. But if you flip on CNN, you flip on MSNBC, you flip on Fox News, you flip on any channel, you can get coverage right now, left and right, Super Bowl coverage of this trial. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore right now. I'm sure I'll talk about it tomorrow once they bring in Costello, and we see what Costello said on Capitol Hill yesterday gets said in the courtroom. I'm telling you, it's going to flip the script completely. And the media is going to have nothing to say. I'm telling you. They're going to be awestruck. But the left wing in this country and the mainstream media saw Joe Biden do a 13-second challenge of Donald Trump, challenging Trump to a debate yesterday. He came out and did a 13-second video that had 5 clips in the middle of it. Again, I edit videos all the time. You could see where the video was edited 5 separate times in a 13-second clip, meaning Joe Biden couldn't say 13 seconds worth of content without being clipped 5 separate times. And it came out at 8 a.m. in the morning. I said yesterday, again, I'm sure this was recorded days and days ago because there's no way Sleepy Joe was up at 8 in the morning. No chance. But the media seemed yesterday, the mainstream media specifically, seemed shocked. You see it all over the place. People are shocked that Donald Trump accepted Joe Biden's debate proposal yesterday. I don't understand why people are shocked that Donald Trump accepted this debate, even with it being on CNN, even with it being, Joe Biden-friendly moderators, even with it being a no-crowd event, even with no RFK on the stage, even with everything stacked against Donald Trump. People are shocked that Trump accepted this debate. And all I'm going to say is Donald Trump has nothing to hide at this point. His record is so strong. He had 4 years of no wars in this country, 4 years of less taxes in this country, 4 years of great economy in this country, 4 years of, American greatness, to be honest with you. And you now see the record of Joe Biden. All I'm going to say is if Donald Trump makes this debate in June, and he makes this debate about one thing, the record of Joe Biden versus the record of Donald Trump, I'm telling you, Donald Trump will completely destroy the political career of Joe Biden. The Democrats will have no choice but to take Joe Biden out, meaning they're going to replace him. I already believe it's going to happen. They're going to replace him at the convention in August. But if Donald Trump makes this about side by side, the three biggest issues in our country right now, the three biggest issues when you do polling, when you look at it, the three biggest issues in this country is immigration, inflation, and taxes. Those are the three things that affect every single person. I don't care where you are in the country. I don't care what your political views are. I don't care what color you are, what race you are, what gender you are, what your sexual orientation is, what your religion is. It doesn't matter. The three things that Donald Trump needs to make this debate about against Joe Biden is immigration, inflation, and taxes. And I'm going to showcase to you right now how Donald Trump can win this debate and completely end the political career that's long overdue, ending the career of Joe Biden. So I'm going to play a clip here. This is talking about inflation. I could sit here and talk about immigration all day. I've done episodes completely on immigration. We know clearly right now in this country, there are two sides of the aisle, left and right. The left wing in this country wants open borders. You can't tell me they don't, because you look at the border today, you look at the amount of people that have flown into this country, flocked into this country, came into this country. You look at the crime in this country that have been caused from the immigration in this country. And then you got the people on the right who are, let's build a wall, let's deport everyone, and let's move on. And let Americans be great. That issue's off the table. Again, Donald Trump needs to highlight it and showcase his position once again and highlight the disastrous border that we've seen over the last 4 years under this old man who has no backbone whatsoever. But let's talk about inflation here. Here's cut 3. This is about inflation. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play these side by side. Joe Biden, then Donald Trump. Joe Biden, then Donald Trump. We're going to go inflation, and then we're going to go taxes. And you tell me who you're voting for in the upcoming election. And this is what Donald Trump needs to do. Show what he said in the past. You know what happened when Donald Trump was on CNN last time? Again, Donald Trump said, I got to pull it out. I'm going to pull it out. And he pulled out of his suit pocket. He had the receipts. Bring the receipts to this debate. Don't let Joe get away with lying. Don't let it happen. Because we know the media is going to play cover up for him. We know the media is going to make it. If Joe Biden shows up to the debate and can find the podium and does not, completely just pull a Mitch McConnell and, get stuck on stage, the media is going to make it sound like this was the greatest debate in the history of our country. They're going to call him Ronald Reagan. They're going to do it so much. All Joe Biden has to do, the bar is so low for Biden, if he just shows up and doesn't fall down, this is the greatest debate we've ever seen. That's what you're going to hear. So Donald Trump needs to bring the receipts to the debate and show the world, show the American voters, show the populace in this country his positions on inflation. Here's cut 3, inflation.
Talk of inflation. The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down. No one's talking about this great, So again, if it turns out that what I've done so far, what we've done so far, is a mistake, it's going to show.
Yeah, I think it's already showed, Joe. It popped up. It hasn't come down. Since you took office, inflation has gone up. It hasn't come down at all. Inflation was at 1.9%, was the highest it was under Donald Trump. We're seeing what inflation is today. People can't go to the grocery store and buy eggs without it being a $20 bill. He says it's going to pop up and then pop back down. Well, when is it popping back down? It's been 3.5 years, Joe. No one's talking about inflation continue. Well, it has continued. People are affected by inflation every single day. Here's Donald Trump on inflation.
Announced last month, inflation surged once again and surged very badly. Joe Biden's inflation tax continues to take away 30 to 50% of every dollar you have. It's a 50% tax. That's what it is. Joe Biden, without any tax hikes, which he's going to give the biggest ever, has already tax hiked you 50%. It's like a sales tax, but much bigger, more painful, and more destructive, because all of the money goes to pay for Joe Biden's wasteful inflation spending like the Green New scam. And that's what it is. It's a scam.
Listen to what Donald Trump said. He said inflation is like a sales tax. And it's a genius comparison. And why is it a genius comparison? Because, again, a sales tax affects everyone the same. Whether you're a millionaire, a billionaire, or you're broke. Inflation affects everyone. If you have $100 and there's 30% inflation, you really only have $70, even though you're holding a $100 bill. You can only buy $70 worth of stuff. It's a tax that affects every single American in this country, no matter what your race is, no matter what your gender is, no matter what your political views are. You're getting taxed by Joe Biden's inflation, and that's before he increases taxes. So Donald Trump needs to stand on the stage and say, hey, when I left office, this is where inflation was. We're now after 3.5 years of you, and it's here. You could say it's going to pop up and pop back down. When are you anticipating it to pop down? Sit there and wait and let Joe try to talk about his cannibalism and his uncle being, eaten by cannibals and how he was born in the black church in Poland. And this guy will fall apart. Side by side, inflation. It hasn't popped back down, Joe. Now let's talk taxes. And this is the biggest discrepancy when you have two politicians right now running in this country. Forget what you think about the candidate. Forget what you think about Sleepy Joe. Forget what you think about Orange Donald Trump. Forget the candidate for a second. Here's Joe Biden on taxes. Listen to this.
I make it clear, I'm going to raise some taxes.
I'll play it again if you missed it.
I make it clear, I'm going to raise some taxes.
He's going to make it clear. He's going to raise some taxes. So Donald Trump even laid it out in the last, clip I played. He's already getting set to raise taxes. He's telling you he's going to raise taxes. Yet inflation is so bad, it's already like a sales tax at 30 or 40 or 50%. Trump laid it out. What did Donald Trump do when he was in office last time? Again, forget the politician. Forget your political views on who Donald Trump is. He definitely lowered taxes for Americans in this country. He had the biggest tax cuts in the history of this nation. You can't argue it. You can't. Here's Donald Trump on tax day this year to the American people. We know Donald Trump is going to, again, implement tax cuts once again. How do I know that? Because I listened to Donald Trump. He delivered last time, and he'll deliver again. Here's Trump.
Happy tax day to everyone. This year, the typical family's tax bill is thousands of dollars lower because of the Trump tax cuts. We doubled your standard deduction. We doubled the child tax cuts, and we lowered income tax rates for everyone. A very big thing. Everybody was very happy when we did that. But if Joe Biden gets his way, you will soon be facing colossal tax hikes, the likes of which no one has ever seen before.
Again, it's so crystal clear. If you have common sense, that's why we call ourselves the Common Sense Army on this podcast. If you have common sense and you put these two records side by side, and for the first time in the history of this country, we do have 4 years of Donald Trump and we do have 4 years of Joe Biden. If you put their records side by side and you look at the 3 or 4 biggest issues in the country and you poll those 3 or 4 biggest issues in the country, I'm telling you right now, the 4 biggest issues in this country is wars around the world, immigration, inflation, and taxes. That's the truth. That's what people care about today. War, immigration, inflation, and taxes. And put the record side by side. If Donald Trump makes this debate against Joe Biden in June about the record and he focuses on the 4 things, wars, inflation, immigration, and taxes, this debate will be annihilation. Why? Because Donald Trump had 4 years of no wars. No more wars around the country. There weren't wars going on around the world. There weren't wars going on in the U.S. We weren't sending money out of the country to go fund wars around the world. And Joe Biden has 4 years of warfare. We're seeing what happened. Russia invaded Ukraine. We're now seeing what's going on in Israel. We're now seeing what's going on around the world. And there's pretty much a war going on in this country right now with pro-Palestine and anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-American. No wars under Donald Trump. Crazy amounts of wars under Joe Biden. That's check 1. Check 2, immigration. Look at the immigration policy of these two guys side by side. Donald Trump wants to build a wall. Donald Trump wants to deport all these millions of people who we've never done any kind of criminal background check on, who have now entered our country. Millions of people entered the country who are committing crimes around the country, who are taking jobs away from Americans. We aren't in a good enough spot in our economy with the inflation, the way inflation is. We aren't in a position to be bringing in people through the border. Look at Joe Biden on immigration. Open borders, no border whatsoever. Let people come in. You know, it's craziness what's gone on. Inflation. I just showed you the clips. Joe Biden is hoping at some point inflation is going to pop back down. It hasn't in 4 years. When Trump was in office, inflation was down. That's the fact. And that affects every single American in this country. I don't care your political ideology. I don't care your race, your class, your gender, your religious beliefs. Guess what? You're affected by inflation. Trump said it best. It's like a hidden sales tax because it affects everyone, whether you're a billionaire or you're broke. And taxes. Joe Biden is telling you point blank, I will raise taxes. And Donald Trump is telling you point blank, I will cut taxes again, and I will do the Trump tax cuts the same way I did last time, which was the biggest tax cut in the history of this country. The debate's over. It's done. There's no need for the debate. All he has to do, Donald Trump, bring the receipts, and then sprinkle in your Donald Trump flair and flavor. We know Trump can be funny. We know Trump is going to have those moments. We know Trump is going to be pissed off about the trial in New York City. Bring that. Throw that in there. But make the debate about the 4 main issues: war, inflation, immigration, and taxes. If Trump can do that and put the records side by side, this debate will be annihilation, and Donald Trump will get a 2 to 3 point increase in the polls, and it'll be done. The political career of Joe Biden will be over. And Democrats will make a decision, officially make a decision, to say, hey, we're going to replace Joe Biden at the convention, or the Democrats will say, we're done. It's fine. We'll win next time because this man's not going to be running next time. I'm telling you right now, you look around the country, people are flocking to Trump because people see this shit for what it is. More people in this country have common sense than the media wants you to believe, than the liberals want you to believe, than the Democrats want you to believe. That's why people are fleeing cities like New York City, fleeing cities like California and LA. People are fleeing cities and going to red states because they are common sense people. Even liberals are fleeing those cities because they don't want to pay the taxes. They don't want to deal with the crime. They don't want to deal with everything going on in these liberal cities. More people have common sense than you want to believe. I'm telling you right now, there are more people who may be left-leaning, but I'm telling you they have common sense, and they're starting to flock to Donald Trump. You heard it earlier in the episode on that MSNBC clip. It is the truth. That's why Trump is going up in the polls. And when they weaponize the Department of Justice and we see what's going on in New York City, we hear Michael Cohen's bullshit. We hear Stormy Daniels' bullshit. It's over. I'm telling you, it's over. So tomorrow we're going to be on the lookout. Be on the lookout tomorrow, Common Sense Army. And you heard it here first. I'm telling you, the witness tomorrow will be Robert Costello, or whenever they finish up with Michael Cohen, finish frying Michael Cohen. I wouldn't mind them frying him for a few more days on the stand, letting him lie over and over. Catch him in a few more lies on the stand. Let's send him back to jail. Let's let him perjure himself a little bit more, than let's get him back to jail. But I'm telling you, you heard it here first. Robert Costello will be the witness for the defense in this case. And I believe we're going to see at least a hung jury, because once we hear his testimony on the stand under oath, he will completely dismantle the credibility that's already been dismantled by Michael Cohen himself, the serial perjurer. When Costello stands up and says exactly what he said under oath on Capitol Hill this week about his recollection, his memory of what Michael Cohen said to him, this case will have a hung jury, and Donald Trump will be a free man heading into the election, and all these other cases are already falling apart. The walls are falling in on the Democrats today. They see it. So be on the lookout. We got a lot coming out on the Why I'm Right podcast, a ton of stuff we're going to keep talking about here. As I say on every episode, I know you guys do it. Make sure you click subscribe. Make sure you share these videos, because we need more people to wake up to the nonsense, to see things for what they really are, and not be misled by the misleading mainstream media in this country. And we need more people to start thinking for themselves and look beyond the bullshit. Common Sense Army, I hope you guys have a great Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you tune in. This is the Why I'm Right podcast, and I just told you why I'm right.
You've been listening to Why I'm Right. Thanks for being a part of the Common Sense Army. Our passion is to cut through the noise and confusion, and to bring light to clickbait and outright lies in the media. Unafraid, unapologetic, real and raw. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram at Why I'm Right, on X at Why I'm Right Pod. And for more, hit the website at www.whyimrightpodcast.com. See you next time.